After finishing as a top 10 fantasy running back last season, the question around Antonio Gibson going into 2022 is he a top 5 dynasty running back? Let's find out. What is up, everybody? It's Nate Liss, and I'm back with you again. And this week I have another fantastic video. I reached out to the group on Discord and said, what do you guys want me to do a video about this week? And resoundingly, most of the members said, we want Antonio Gibson. So that's what I'm delivering to you guys. And if you're not a part of the Discord group yet, it is growing by the week. We have an enormous group in there currently. It is hyperactive. It's totally free. You guys can banter with me, ask me Dynasty questions. We have a trade channel. We have a rumor channel. We're even running 2022 mocks all the time now. So if you want to jump into a 2022 rookie mock draft, come join the Discord channel, and you guys can do that in there as well. The link is in the description. Now, listen, guys, if you've enjoyed the content that I've been putting together, if you found value in the shorts that I've been making, in the feature videos that I've been making, then hit the subscribe button right now and come be a part of the team. Help me continue to grow this channel and make sure that you don't miss out on anything every time I drop a new video. I'd be glad to have you. So with that said, let's jump right into this. Up until just recently, calling Antonio Gibson a top 5 dynasty running back was considered bold. Don't believe me? Let's take a look at this graphic from Keep Trade Cut back on January 24th, where he was ranked a top 13 running back, and that was in the new year. Strangely, even after 300 total touches in 2021, which ranked 4th amongst all running backs, people still weren't sold. Then, despite ranking top 5 in evaded tackles and top 8 in breakaway runs, we still had a group of people pushing back on this. And even after closing out 2021 with 4 top 6 fantasy finishes over his final 6 games, it's like nobody cared. Because in the end, most fantasy gamers only look at one thing, and that's fantasy points per game, which in Gibson's case was 14.3 and made him the RB17 overall. And if that's a metric that you look at, then it makes sense why you might value Antonio Gibson outside the top 10. But thanks to Keep Trade Cut, we know that many of you actually do. Let's take a look at this picture right here. And that's just number 1 of the only 2 gripes that you have with Antonio Gibson, which is actually astonishing because I literally have hundreds of thousands of complaints for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And your other gripe with Antonio Gibson was the work he was losing to undersized journeyman JD McKissic, or as I like to call him, JD Chrysler Sebring. And just a night ago, before I recorded this video, I was hanging with the group in the Discord chat. Why haven't you joined yet? And we were collectively rejoicing over the Buffalo Bills signing JD McKissic. We were talking about all the passes Antonio Gibson was going to catch and laughing hysterically about how high his snap share might actually be. And then, like a bad dream, this news broke. JD McKissic was coming back to the Commanders. And at first I was concerned about it. I started second guessing my faith in the Church of Gibson. But then the data brought me back to my center, my chi or feng shui. I don't know what it is. Anyways, when looking back at the impact JD McKissic actually had on Gibson, it wasn't nearly as bad as you would expect, but it was still too much. Because despite Antonio Gibson being relegated to an RB23 overall, 56.3% snap share, he was still seeing volume in many of the most significant metrics. For starters, in 2021, Antonio Gibson ranked number 8 overall in weighted opportunities, a metric that accounts for all forms of touches but puts a premium on the value of passing targets. This was part of what put him over the top in 2021, the 52 targets, some of which was amplified by the late season loss of JD McKissic. Then we had yards per route run, a metric that focuses on receiving yards divided by the routes run by the player. Antonio Gibson ranked inside the top 15 in this metric as well, despite what many considered a throttled passing game opportunity. And lastly, my favorite, the 52 total red zone touches, which were good for 4th highest in the league at the running back position. One of the biggest issues with running backs is losing goal line work, whether it be to another running back or to a team's quarterback. The results are never great. So I did some digging, and this is when I fell down the rabbit hole. So we know that Antonio Gibson is plenty capable of churning out tough yards in the red zone, but just look at how many times they used him in it. And we also know that Carson Wentz is now the new quarterback for 2022 for the Commanders, not Taylor Heinicke, and that's probably a good thing. Because although Wentz and Heinicke saw similar red zone touches in 2021, it came at different offensive usage rates. As you can see, Taylor Heinicke was given a greater piece of the overall team's red zone work than Carson Wentz was. So I decided to go back in time and look at Wentz from year to year, and I continued to mostly net the same results, a below league average red zone usage. So while Wentz is much larger and not as fast as Heinicke, they did share a similar peak season rushing attempts, which were in the low 60s. But the way that Washington likely views Wentz and his historical red zone abilities may be the skeleton key to Antonio Gibson finishing number 1 in league red zone attempts in 2022. But the real kick in the nuts for Dynasty gamers is looking at JD McKissic's profile and seeing that he was RB1 in yards per touch as well as the RB1 in yards created per touch. The latter of the two is completely indicative, though, of how they were using him, which was getting him into space, because his juke rate and evaded tackles and breakaway runs were all outside the top 50 or worse at the position. And I know some of you are going to say, but Nate, those stats are a product of volume. Okay, well then let's look at averages, Bob. 1 for 1, when comparing JD McKissic to Antonio Gibson, a couple things are immediately noticeable. 1, Antonio Gibson's juke rate or evaded tackles per touch were twice as high at 29% than JD McKissic's, which were below 15%. And then number 2, Antonio Gibson's breakaway run rate or carries greater than 15 yards at 4.7% was again more than double JD McKissic's 2.1%, and on a per game average, Gibson was actually ranked 8 times higher. So don't you think at some point the Commanders are going to figure out that if they deployed Antonio Gibson in the same manner that they're using JD McKissic, he would net even better results? No? So while Dynasty gamers fear the worst, I see a more realistic upside for Antonio Gibson. Because in 2020, during Gibson's rookie season, we really saw JD McKissic eat. In fact, his 110 targets ranked number 1 at the position, which should come as no surprise to anyone. What is surprising, however, is that we saw McKissic's passing workload drop by 2 targets per game from 6.9 in 2020 to 4.8 in 2021. And his target share also fell down from 19.2% in 2020 to 14.7 in 2021. So with the opportunity growth we saw from Antonio Gibson from year 1 to year 2, anybody who tells you that entering year 3, a leap couldn't be on the horizon is probably telling on themselves. While year 2 proved to be a 51% rushing attempt bump for Gibson above the year prior, we're still holding out hope for the target share in 2022. But again, even without any more than 3.3 targets per game, he still finished as a top 10 running back last season. And in 2021, we still didn't see Antonio Gibson with a snap share above 80%, which is a terrifying idea for any defense. But if what we saw from him in weeks 12 through 15 last season are any indication of the passing volume he could see in 2022, then it's absolutely wheels up for Antonio Gibson. And please don't forget the potential for injury from a player like JD McKissic as well. He'll be 29 years old when kickoff comes around, and he weighs 187 pounds. Just ask Theo Riddick how that late career production worked out for him. Yet when compared to his peers, the true difference between Gibson and anybody else ranked above him is competition, and more specifically for targets. With Jonathan Taylor locked into his role as the RB1 and DeAndre Swift looking like a monster after contact, and Najee Harris with zero competition and a monster workload, these 3 players feel like a sure thing at the top. Yet players like Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins feel like they may be on unstable footing, with injuries and questions about their future production as well as the competition in their own backfields. It's hard to rank them confidently inside the top 5. The real hurdle, though, begins when we talk about Javonte Williams, Breece Hall, potentially, and Christian McCaffrey. Reality is that Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in football. And if he wasn't going to be 26 years old next season and wasn't coming off 2 years in a row with significant injuries that exposed his fragility, we'd be on board with him. But missed games at some point have to matter. Now, Breece Hall is a total wild card, but his athletic profile is off the charts and his college production profile was equally impressive. All that stands in his way is draft capital and a landing spot. But he could also very well be one of the most fungible of this group. He's either a top 5 running back potentially, or maybe he's near the back of the top 10, yet only time will tell. With Javonte, his only hurdle is Melvin Gordon, and at this point, it appears more and more likely that Melvin wants to continue being a lead runner, and that's likely not in Denver. So naturally, that means that all the work falls on the shoulders of Javonte Williams, and after the flashes we saw from him in 2021, we know he'll be a big riser in 2022. So in the end, with the potential already flashed by Gibson, knowing what opportunity growth may actually be around the corner, it's hard to say he doesn't deserve a spot inside the top 5. But God damn it, JD McKissic, you really had to make this difficult, didn't you?